All right, so we're going to be, this is chapter 6 in this book, in the God Does His Best Work with Empty. And so she opens with talking about product reviews, restaurant reviews, service reviews, those kind of things. So I'm asking this, do you ever leave a review like on Amazon or for a restaurant? Something you buy or a restaurant you go to or something. Are you ever the ones that actually leave the reviews? What does it take? Restaurant. This doesn't have spell check. It's killing me. I'm so dependent on spell check. I'm so dependent on typing things. Restaurant. So if they email you for it, you'll ask for it. Yeah.
Normally, I don't think about it unless I'm
Yeah. Yeah. They offer you something. Yeah. Yeah. I never do them. Never. I don't know why, but I just never take the time. I'm like, somebody should. But what about, do you use them? So if you're going to buy something or you're going to go to a restaurant, do you use them? What use do you get out of those other people's reviews?
I use them for hotels. If I'm going to go out of town, I've noticed that those are almost better than whatever stars they get.
Yeah.
You'll read people and it'll say excellent. I always use like hotels.com.
There you go.
I only go for concerts. It's not like I'm an important business man or I like travel. It's just if I'm going out of town for that.
Yeah.
They are really helpful.
Yeah.
Because you'll have like 5.
You know what you're getting into.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep. So I hope you see what it's like before you get there, that kind of thing. Yeah, we've gotten very dependent on Amazon for a lot of things. And if something has like 10,000 reviews and 4.5 stars, you're like, okay, pretty good shot at this. What about if there was a review on life? If you had to write a review on life, what would you say? Yeah.
We're in church.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
So the way I think about life reviews, and this is just the first thought that came into my mind, which sometimes is a little dangerous, but Wanda and I, one of the best things that we ever did, and I encourage all young married couples and families to do this, find you an older mentor.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not talking about somebody that tickles your ears. I'm talking about somebody that will take you in and will help you. And we had 2. We were blessed with 2. And they were tremendously helpful because what they did, they helped us look back in their life and what they did right, what they did wrong, and it helped Wanda and I as we looked forward in our life. So you could say that they gave us a life review from their life.
Yeah.
It greatly benefited Wanda and I.
That's cool. That's cool. That's helpful. Absolutely helpful. Yeah.
It's just like that old saying, if you got marriage problems, don't go seek out somebody that's been divorced 3 times for advice.
Yeah.
Go seek out somebody that's been married for 42 years and listen to what they tell you. And that's kind of a positive life review.
I like it. So some people would give negative stars to life. Some people would give positive 4.5. I saw a bunch of like coffee mugs and different things that said like 2020, 0 out of 5 stars or whatever. And that was popular. Yeah. So the book of Ecclesiastes, she compares to a man who did just about everything under the sun, looking back and giving a life review from his perspective kind of toward the end of his life. And if you've read Ecclesiastes, that's not a very shiny review of life. It's not a raving review. There are many negative things he has to say about life. Not all negative, as we'll see, but it's got some ups and downs and pretty brutal honesty with a lot of it. And so I'm taking her kind of outline and tweaking it. Essentially, what I'm going to give is kind of four topics in life and the 4 lessons, one lesson for each of the topics that she brings up, or that she's talking about. That we don't know for sure. You know, we think probably King Solomon, just from the examples. But his name's not mentioned. We get the words of the preacher, and most Bibles have a footnote like mine that says the Hebrew is like koholeth, and so it's just some kind of, he's proclaiming, teaching, that kind of thing. And so it says the son of David, king in Jerusalem. So we think Solomon, but it could be somebody down the line because son doesn't. Anyway, doesn't matter. Probably Solomon. We're just going to call him the guy in Ecclesiastes or whatever. So he says, he talks a lot about when life is meaningless, or when life feels meaningless. And there's one word, the word he uses a whole bunch of time in Ecclesiastes. There's one word over and over and over again, and vanity. Yeah, so the ESV calls it vanity. I don't know what, NLT I think says just meaningless or something like that. And as I'm clicking this, I don't know how big these words are going to be. Very small. So, Madison, will you read this for me? No, just kidding. Just kidding. Yeah. This is just to give you a sound of what he says about life. So he says, Vanity of Vanities. This is verses 2 to 8. Vanity of Vanities, says the preacher. Vanity of Vanities, all is vanity. What does man gain by the toil at which he toils under the sun? And generation goes and generation comes, but the earth remains forever. The sun rises, the sun goes down, it hastens to the place where it rises. The wind blows to the south, it goes around to the north. Around and around the wind goes, and on its circuit the wind returns. All streams run to the sea, but the sea is not full. To the place where the streams flow, there they flow again. All things are full of weariness, a man cannot utter it. An eye is not satisfied with hearing, nor the ear with hearing. So he's just like, man, this is all just pointless. That's where he starts out. So let me ask you if you ever feel like that. So that word vanity, yeah, NLT says meaningless. The word refers to like if it was cold outside and you took and you saw that vapor, that mist, and it's just there for a split second, and then it's gone. Like that's the word he's using: vanity, useless, meaningless, that kind of thing. So let me ask you: Does your life ever feel that way? Does you ever look at life and feel like this is just totally meaningless and pointless? Small scale, big scale. Do you feel it that way? And what prompts that feeling for you? What has in the past, or what have you noticed where you're like, man, this just feels pointless? Yeah.
It's just another day like any other day, and getting up, going to work, coming back, or walking from your bedroom to the kitchen to go to work for the day.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just the day to day. Yeah. Boredom's great. That's a good one too.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Or I think when things go, if you go through a struggle for a period too. If it stretches out longer than you want, which is most of the time.
Yeah, any struggle, yeah.
Like a day tops,
Right.
More than that, we're like, come on. So yeah, I think that does for sure.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Who else? When does life feel meaningless?
When you're living apart from God.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's everything he's taught, searching for everything when you're not searching for what God wants you to do.
Yeah.
What he made you to do.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, and it's just a lot of truth to that. It's not really boredom or mundane. It's just truth.
Just how life is.
The sun rises, the sun sets.
Yep.
But I guess it's kind of like we walk by faith and not by sight.
Yeah.
All that is sight. It's just stuff that happens.
Yep. Yeah. That's good. That's really good.
And like he said, when you keep your eyes on God, it makes it worthwhile.
Right. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I feel like the one of the greatest temptations for life to, like when we're most tempted to feel that life is meaningless, is that like when you feel like life's just a hamster wheel, you're just running and just kind of doing your thing, but you're staying in the same spot, you know. And it's whether it's just the mundanes of, you know, hey, it's another Monday, I got to go to work again or whatever, or feeling like they're just not making a difference in the world, like you just try, put all this effort in, and you're same spot you were last week, the week before, the year before, you just kind of feel stuck. She brings up another one, another time where this could happen. This is her quote, page 119. Sometimes I feel as if my life is a bottomless pit and my desires are never fully satisfied. So this is just like desire, and I keep seeking to fill it, and I can just never find the bottom of that. Verse 14 and 15 in chapter 1. I have seen everything that is done under the sun, and behold, all is vanity and a striving after wind. What is crooked cannot be made straight, and what is lacking cannot be counted. So that word vanity shows up 5 times in verse 2, 29 more times throughout the book of Ecclesiastes. So 34 total, 34 times. And so vanity is one of the words that gets repeated, and then this concept of being under the sun. So I don't know, I didn't count those or Google that. I'm going to guess at least a dozen times in Ecclesiastes. Ephesians and Ecclesiastes. Ecclesiastes. That's good. Parliament? Who said that's awesome? So he's looking at all of life under the sun. That's another key phrase we're going to come back to in a minute. But so there's kind of like a summary of where he's at. And so there is a real sense in which life can feel pointless and meaningless, and we can struggle to find meaning in it. And so here's the lesson, one of the first lessons that Nancy Guthrie pulls out of that. When life doesn't seem to be working, it might not be that you're not doing it right. It might be because the world isn't right. So there is a sense in which there's a brokenness to our world, and we shouldn't be surprised when things are hard and challenging and when life feels perfect. There was a time in the Garden of Eden, right, where this is life under the sun, so on the earth, and it was perfect. Everything was right. There was meaning, there's purpose and value and work for them to do in the garden, and yet when sin came in, it broke everything. Relationship between man and wife, man and woman and God, relationship to nature, relationship with them, how they saw themselves, the guilt and shame they felt, So everything was broken, and so there is a real sense in which we go through life and it feels like it really doesn't work like it's supposed to. And that shouldn't be surprising to us when it doesn't work like we want to. When you, generally, your outlook on life, do you expect life to work out? Maybe is this just an optimist versus pessimist question? I don't know. Like, when you're going through life, do you expect like, hey, this is all going to go right. It's going to come together. Or do you expect, hey, I'm probably going to face a lot of hardships as I go through this next period. What's kind of your outlook as you come? Do you expect hardships, or do you expect it to be more or less heading in the right direction? Yeah.
He's married. He looks at the negative, and I look at the positive.
Yeah.
No, I'm
And then the two
looking
become
real.
Every pessimist calls himself a realist. I know this. Yeah. And I know that because I'm married to one. So, yeah.
And realtists are fixers.
That's right.
We try to fix everything.
Yeah, that's right.
Pocketbooks.
That's right.
Right away.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I read last week the pessimist looks. This is unrelated. I don't know what I'm telling you this. Pessimist looks in a tunnel and says it's dark. There's no hope. The optimist says, "Oh, there's a light at the end of the tunnel." And the realist says, "Yeah, it's a train. It's coming right for us. Let's get on with it." Yeah. So, I don't know what that has to do with the price of anything, but yeah, true. Yeah.
And the realtist knows who's driving.
That's right. That's right. That's good. That's good. Yeah. So, when you look at life, do you expect life to be challenging, or do you expect it to be pretty smooth? You expect it to be challenging, Mary Fran?
I think it could have been smoother if I'd have made some better decisions.
Yeah.
I expect it to be a dogfight all the way to our last breath.
Yeah.
We weren't made for this place.
No.
That's right.
Well,
That's
Yeah.
exactly.
when you think about verses of, count it all joy
Mm.
and things like that, so it really matters what lens you're looking at it through.
Yep.
Right. So I can go through a normal day and think, like today, is cabinets really changing the world or fixing this problem? In and of itself, that is not. But I'm engaged in relationships with people.
Yep.
I'm providing, food and sustenance for my family and,
Yep.
and doing that, and the ability to do other ministry because of those resources, things like that. So it matters heavily what lens you're looking
Yeah.
through at it.
Yep.
And a lot of times I admit that I'm looking at it like, why does it have to be so hard?
Yeah.
Or something like that.
Yep.
But when you step back and you're aligned well with Scripture and you're thinking
Yeah.
rightly, let's
Mm.
say, in a spiritual lens or through the Bible's lens, then you can have joy in the mundane.
Yeah.
This is the pep talk we get every January 1st.
There you go. I like it.
Me and the kids are like,
They're all bluesy.
Yeah. This is the post vacation blues.
Aaron's like, regular life can be fun.
Yeah. Regular life. Yeah. That's
If you're always looking for the mountaintop, you're going to be disappointed a lot of the time.
yeah.
So,
Yeah. I think maybe this just hit me more because I just expect life to be great all the time, which it's not that life has always been great for me. It's just I'm just like, what's that? Yeah, you're right. I am sleep deprived. So it's blurring my lens. Yeah.
Every night he's like, they're good at sleep.
They're gonna sleep.
I do pray.
Thank you. There will be one night in the future that my kids will not wake me up. That is Friday night because I will not be with my kids, and neither will Amber. So my mom's keeping the kids.
wake up worried about
That's right. Yeah, that's gonna be good. Yeah, so it's helpful just to like have to be honest. Ecclesiastes is this reality check a little bit that for at least for me that I kind of think of life real rosy and say no, this is a broken world and many times there are struggles and pains and sorrows and it can feel defeating in so many ways and that helps us long for the world we're supposed to ultimately be in with God and this world is many times broken and so yeah she talks about how we in our limited view of how things are going to go it's so easy for us to get sidetracked. It could be you can get a mountain of compliments and then one criticism and in our broken minds that one criticism outweighs everything else positive that was said. We can work so hard to buy something and then as soon as we get it home we're ready to buy the next thing or we think it's not like it's a disappointment to us. For me it's like I have this long list of projects and I'll work so hard on the house to project to like check this one off and as soon as it's done I'm like that wasn't real satisfying. What's the next one? Like I'm ready to move on. We live just unable to find that contentment. So the second topic he gives is this search for something worthwhile. So Ecclesiastes 2, again, I'm going to put this up here. You won't be able to read all these. This is 2, 1 to 11. This is mainly just for me to put the reference in front of you. I know you can't read it. If you look through that first 11 verses of chapter 2, I made the list. Essentially, I'll give you the first couple verses. He said, I said in my heart, come now, I will test you with pleasure. So he's speaking to himself, and he starts running through all the different things he tried to find satisfaction in, all the things he tried to find something worthwhile in. And so here's the list I pulled out of this 11 verses. He tried to find something worthwhile in pleasure, laughter, wine, wisdom, foolishness, building a huge home, building beautiful vineyards, having a water reservoir to water his vineyard, having slaves, having children, having a huge herd and flock, having silver and gold, having a whole bunch of singers, having a lot of concubines, being considered great, greater than all the other kings before, working hard, all of that. Those are all different things he tried to find joy and satisfaction in. And then in verse 11 he says, "Then I considered that all that my hands had done, and all the toil I had expended in doing it, and behold, it was all vanity and striving after the wind, and there was nothing to be gained under the sun." So check, I tried all these different ways of finding meaning and purpose in life, and all of them came up empty. All of them came up not satisfying. Trying to find the meaning in these things, and they didn't do it. But he does, a couple chapters later, give a little bit better perspective on things, on how to view these kind of things. He says, "Behold," this is Ecclesiastes 5:18 and 19, "Behold, what I have seen to be good and fitting is to eat and drink and find enjoyment in all the toil with which one toils under the sun, the few days of his life that God has given him. For this is his lot. Everyone also to whom God has given wealth and possessions and power to enjoy them and to accept his lot and rejoice in his toil, this is the gift of God." So what's different about this perspective than the first time? What do you notice here? What's the lesson to draw from a little bit more positive description?
Focus on God instead of himself.
Yeah. He says it's a gift from God. Yeah. Well, what's his perspective here on all of his stuff? Yeah, it's a gift, comes from God, and he's content with it, right? Like, this is my lot. Whichever one toils under the sun, the days of his life that God has given him, for this is his lot. Instead of always striving for the next thing, hey, I'm not satisfied with this, I'll fill it with this. He wasn't satisfied with a big home, so he built a beautiful vineyard. Like, it's just always the next thing, as opposed to just saying, hey, this is what God has given me in life, and I'm just going to rest in this. I'm just going to find contentment in this. So second lesson is that when we find ourselves unsatisfied in life, it's not that we don't have what we need to be happy, it's that we refuse to be happy with what we have. So often I think that's the case. It's not that we actually need something else. We're just not finding contentment now. Philippians 4:13 is many people's favorite verse. And in that context, the thing that he says we can do all things through Christ who strengthens him, he's talking about being content, being satisfied. He said, I know what it's like to have hunger and to have want and then to be satisfied. I know how to have I was in jail and I was a free man. I've been on all sides of the spectrum here. The only way to find joy and peace in it all is to find contentment with wherever God has put us so far. When are you most likely? Have there been times in your life where you're able to stop and say, "No, right here, I'm content," where you haven't been seeking after that next thing, where you've been able to say, in this, like maybe it's just one snapshot moment in a day, or a time period in your life, or certain things, or certain ways, where you've been able to say, "No, really, right here, I'm content." Do you recognize what contentment feels like?
The only thing that's coming to my mind is when you first have a baby and you're all happy and excited before the lack of sleep.
Yeah, the very first hour.
When you get
Yeah.
that baby and it's like total joy, like
Yeah.
so content, and then goes the months and years afterwards where it's like hardship and just
Yeah.
there's joy moments,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I just feel like when you first have a baby,
Yeah.
that total joy from that.
Yep. 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 Yep.
I think one thing that you said, maybe not on purpose, was to stop.
Yeah.
When you do stop
Yep.
and think and look back, 'cause you can go through it without doing that.
Mhm.
When you stop, or you have those moments, like after a baby, or it always happens in these quieter moments where you're not running 100 miles an hour.
Mm-hmm.
That you stop and you look at the big picture and can be thankful.
Yep. Yep.
Or content.
Yep. Yep. I'll tell you, Sunday's my favorite day of the week in many ways, but my mind's going like a million miles an hour. Like people, and I got a sermon, like I'm just so fast. And I thought about this Sunday in between each baptism, as like we just kind of let the person get out of the pool, the next person's coming. My mind, there was no like, I'm not like rushing to say the right thing, and like, I knew what I was going to say. I wasn't like stressed about, and I was just able to just enjoy how cool is this, that we're just celebrating new life with this person. And for me, it was like this just ministry contentment of just enjoying, celebrating what God's doing in these people's lives. That was really a cool moment for me. I think about sometimes our dinner table, like most of the time our dinner table is like, hey, don't throw this, quick yelling at your sister, eat your food, Lydia, don't spit up, whatever. But there's some moments where like, we're just all sitting there together, and for just 5 seconds, I feel this like, this is great. I love this. So yeah. Anyway, but thinking about contentment, and I think that's a really helpful, when we're thinking about being satisfied in life and finding meaning and purpose, many times we're trying to fill it with the next thing, reach the next rung with our job, we're always trying to reach higher and higher and higher, because this American dream has been pushed down our throats like, hey, if you just seek after your wealth and pursue your destiny, then you'll be satisfied. But really it's just telling you the next rung up will make you satisfied. And you just keep climbing and keep climbing, when really many times God's saying, I've given you plenty. Just be content where you are. Be satisfied where you are. All right, one of the major things that Ecclesiastes does is it gives us this invitation to think about death. And that is scary to so many people, or morbid, or foolish, or something along those lines. So look in chapter 7. It says, a good name is better than precious ointment. The day of death, better than the day of life. It is better to go to the house of mourning than to the house of feasting. For this is the end of all mankind, and the living will lay it to heart. The heart of the wise is in the house of the mourning, but the heart of fools is in the house of mirth. What in the world is he talking about? Why does he consider it wisdom to think about and to focus on, to be aware of our own mortality, the fact that we're going to die? Why would that help us? Does that help us in any way? What's that? Yeah. Yeah. Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. We'll word it this way, then we'll flesh this out. Looking squarely into the reality of death doesn't ruin our lives, it informs our lives. So one of the ways about being intentional about how we live now, knowing that we don't have forever. Yeah, that's a really good point. What else? Let me ask you this, the negative side first, the obvious. Why do we want to avoid thinking about death? It's scary. Yeah, it's sad. Yeah, for sure. Does it make it any less real if we don't think about it? No, it doesn't stop anything. Lydia is trying to figure out hide and go seek right now, which means she walks to a wall still facing you, and just like, it's like, well, we figured out she's trying to hide because the kids love playing hide and seek. And it's like the idea of like, I can't see you, you can't see me, Like we treat death that way so many times. Like we act like if we just close our eyes, we just ignore it, it won't happen. But if we're willing to honestly consider death, it might inform life a little bit more. So Caitlin already mentioned being intentional. It helps keep it in perspective, keep life in perspective, that it's not going to be here forever. And so how are we spending our time? What are we doing with our efforts? This is Ecclesiastes 5:15. As he came from his mother's womb, he shall go again. Naked he came, and he shall take nothing for his toil that he can carry away in his hand. You've heard this before maybe, there's no U-Hauls following hearses. You can't take your stuff with you. There's no sense in pursuing stuff as an end of itself, because John Ortberg wrote a book called When the game is over, it all goes back in the box. So picture your life as this one big Monopoly game. If your goal is just to have all the pieces and to win, you know what happens at the end of Monopoly? You put it all back in the box, and it's right where it started. If its life is just about possessions, then that's going to be a useless thing to pursue. So a much better thing to do, as Jesus says in the Sermon on the Mount, do not lay up for yourselves treasures on earth where moth and rust destroy, where thieves break in and steal, but lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven where neither moth nor rust destroys, where thieves do not break in and steal. So investing in things that are eternal, things that matter. So what's an eternal investment? What does it mean to lay up treasures in heaven?
I was reading 2 Corinthians chapter 5 this week, and it says, and you think about David. I didn't know Dave that much, but y'all are all grieving. I mean, you know him so well, and the good stories you hear about him, but you know, like he's more alive than us.
Yeah.
Like, his mortality has been swallowed up by immortality.
Yeah. 1 Corinthians 15. Yep.
He's actually in heaven talking to Jesus about Jan getting saved.
Yep.
And it's kind of cool when you think about that. And, but chapter 5, it talked about things like that, like walking by faith,
Yep.
not by sight.
Yep. Yep.
So we got to believe that that's real, and this isn't what's going on here.
Yep. Yep. That's good. That's really good. Yeah, when we use our resources, our time, money, energy, efforts, strategically and sacrificially to serve others, to love others, to put them above ourselves, and to invest in things that are eternal, like people's salvation, their growth in the Lord. Love is eternal. People are eternal. People's souls are eternal. Those investments are investments in the kingdom of God. Helping people know God better, because that's what we're going to do for the rest of eternity, is get to know God better and better. That's an eternal investment. Helping the people perceive the glory of God, experience the glory of God, that's doing something that's eternal. So when we love our neighbor and we love God, those are eternal investments. And that may require providing for your family. So there are material parts of that. God has given you a body for a purpose. So He intended us to need air and water and food and clothing and shelter for a reason. Our material things have a purpose, but we have to keep them in perspective. And death is one of those things that, if we'll look honestly at death, helps keep life in perspective. So yeah, He has a lot to say about death. But He does have a very limited perspective in Ecclesiastes. And so I'll say this, when life appears to have no meaning, it may be because our perspective is limited. So I said a minute ago that the phrase he uses over and over again is under the sun. And Shane and Shane capture this. That's a band, worship guys, Shane Bernard and Shane Everett, I think. So they have a song. Let me just read this to you. I'm not going to sing it, of course. It says, sitting around the fireplace with a friend who's been through it all, Solomon, the wisest one, tell me what you have found under the sun, under the sun. Verse 2 says, and then he put on a somber face and talked about how the rich man will waste away in the ground where the poor man is found, painted up like a clown under the sun, under the sun. Verse 3 says, soon you'll be done, a life spent on some shiny god who leaves you empty. Those are the three verses. But then the chorus is, he answered, get over, get over, get over the sun. Get over, get over, get over the sun where life is hidden. So he's saying, if you only chase things on this earth that you can see, you're going to be dissatisfied. So one of the lessons he's got to learn is to not just look at things under the sun, but to look over the sun to the one who created the sun, so to speak, the one who sent his son. That's like the preacher pun of all puns. Like, that only works in English, but anyway. So he has such a limited perspective and proves that we've got to look beyond that. So I'm going to skip to one more verse in the end of the very end of the book is Ecclesiastes 12:13. The end of the matter, all has been heard. fear God and keep His commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. So this idea of fearing God really captures as best he can pre-Jesus what it looks like to find meaning in life. Our whole view in life has to be Godward. We have to be God-centered. And so his perspective was limited in that he did not yet know what Christ was going to accomplish on the cross. But he got this far. Ecclesiastes is able to get this far. Just fear God, keep the commandments, keep following the Lord, be content with what we've got, and honor Him with that. So, yeah, there's other good things, but we'll leave it there. All right, let me close this in prayer. God, thank you for your word. Thank you for Ecclesiastes and all the challenges it shows us, and all the ways it challenges our view of life. It is good, God, for us to be able to be honest about the difficulties and struggles of life. But Lord, we also want to know that with you there is meaning and purpose and value. God, you give meaning to our lives here and now. God, you tell us that we can be steadfast and immovable, always abounding in your work, because in you, Lord, our labor is not in vain. So Lord, may we fear you, may we keep your commandments, and may our life have meaning and purpose in your kingdom and for your glory. In Christ's name, amen. Awesome. All right.